And with that, I think we're good to go. Um, Tēnā koutou katoa, all of you. Thank you for joining us for this lunchtime webinar, and special thanks for your time and attention today. I've just come from a profoundly inspiring morning session for All In for Arts, which is the roadshow that we run with the Arts Foundation. And if you haven't already checked that out on Spotify, I strongly encourage you to do it. The kōrero from artists is so powerful and such a reminder of the transformative power of arts in communities to impact all of us. But to welcome us all into today's space, I'll open us with a karakia. Aio ki te rangi, aio ki te whenua, aio ki ngā tangata katoa. Peace to the skies, peace to the land, peace to all. And welcome again. For those who haven't met me, I'm Claire Murdoch. I'm the Senior Manager of Arts Development here at Toi Aotearoa. And together with my fellow creative New Zealanders, Abby Sizem and Leah Dodd, we'll be hosting this webinar. I'd also like to introduce Bridie and Philippa, our hard-working colleagues from New Zealand Sign Language who are interpreting the webinar today. Tēnā kōrua. Bit of general housekeeping. We are recording this webinar. It will be available tomorrow on CNZ's YouTube channel. Forgive me if I speak from my notes. There's a wee bit to get through. As mentioned, perhaps, we have more than 450 people registered for this webinar today from all around the country. That means that it simply won't be practical for us to reply to questions well or fairly during this webinar. It's simply too big a task. But on the plus side, our staff across CNZ have been meeting and hearing from you and people like you a lot since last year. And we've gathered your most commonly asked questions from across the team and expect to cover most of them today. And of course, you can still ask written questions during the webinar via the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll collect all of them and we'll share them within the week, along with the answers as an FAQ document to be posted on our website and through our various e-pānui. So please do ask questions via the Q&A function. For those of you who want to ask a question using New Zealand Sign Language, please do use the Zoom raise your hand function. We'll turn your camera on so that Bridie and Philippa can see you. They will translate your question and we'll respond to it during the webinar if we possibly can. If you've got queries later on, another way to get in touch is via email, kōreromai@creativenewzealand.gov.nz, and we'll make sure that we respond. That might be over email, phone, or through a video call. As usual, we've heard your comments that we can't over-communicate, and we want to make sure that we're connecting with you in the ways that best meet your needs. So, this is the first of 4 webinars that will take place throughout 2025. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. The purpose is to keep you updated with information about our change journey and how we'll be working with organisations and groups into the future. Today in particular, I'm keen to bring you all up to speed with information that we have shared to date through a variety of meetings, Zui, blogs, one-on-ones and other kōrero, so that everyone can hear where we're up to and we can all be on the same page. By the end of this webinar, you will know about our commitment to change, the themes that you've been sharing with me and us, the funds that we're running in 2025 for arts organisations and groups, what all organisations and groups can expect in 2026, and this time I do mean 2026, our overall financial situation and our available funding, and as mentioned, at the end of the webinar, some of your most asked questions and the answers that we can give you to them. Now, I'd like to recap where we are in our change journey. I've been in face-to-face hui with lots of you, and even more of you were involved in the roadshows and the work to redesign our shorter-term programs, which were launched last year. And lots of you who lead arts organisations have told me directly that even though you're nervous about change, you recognise that change is powerful, necessary, and enabling. Many of you have specifically said that you welcome the shift towards valuing impact in communities over delivery, because this aligns with the way that you already work. Leah will speak excitingly to some more of these ideas that you've shared with us shortly. The real opportunity here also is for communities to be empowered to take more of a role in the decisions that affect the arts about them and that impact them. Watch this space for more of that in developing months. Over the past 2 years, we've been committed to real and meaningful change shaped by you. We have been led by your feedback, listening and learning, and we've been building on our new ways of working with you. We will keep this up. In 2024, we delivered change focused on 8 of our short-term programs with notably positive results and feedback. Now we're extending those changes to all arts organisations and groups. As you will appreciate, this is really careful and important work. You've told us we need to balance the need to provide you with early information to help you plan with the need for robust, simple, equitable, and yet thorough processes that are developed with you in mind. And we're also mindful that this really important planning is taking place just as we welcome our new CEO, Gretchen LaRoche, on board in May, as well as our strategy being out for public consultation with you right now. And because support for arts organisations and groups represents broadly 69% of our funding budget, we're taking the time to get this right. It's the responsibility of our governing body, the Arts Council Toi Aotearoa, to sign off on this programme of work, led by our new chair, Kent Gardner, and with the 12 members of the Arts Council representing Māori and Pacific in particular, alongside other skills. This work is due to take place in late August. So that's a lot of work to line up. We plan to share the finalised and detailed criteria for the new arts organisations and groups programs in September 2025. Between now and then, we are committed to sharing more iterative information in these ongoing webinars as soon as it is available and as we develop all of our future programs. And of course, we are continually talking to artists, groups, organisations and communities to inform the development of those programs. I'm now going to hand over to Leah, who will talk you through the changes we've been making over the past couple of years.
Thanks, Claire, and apologies in advance if some of the wonderful roadworks from down below make its way into my kōrero. So we are committed to working together to build more connected and sustainable arts and Ngātoi communities, and we're responding to your feedback by working with you to tell a bigger, more powerful story than who got funded, a story about all the arts in Aotearoa. We'll do this through support for programming, as well as supporting artistic and business development that reflects all artists, rangatoi, arts organisations and their communities. We're building on and encouraging the strong sense of kotahitanga we're hearing about from across the sector. We'll spend more time actively creating opportunities for organisations and groups to work together, share resources and build stronger partnerships. We are keen to empower communities to make more of the decisions about the arts that matter to them. This includes the value and simplicity of the reports we ask you to share with us. We're thinking globally, and we know you are too. There will continue to be international opportunities across all our funds, creating and joining up pathways from local to national to global stages, because growing New Zealand's arts and Ngātoi sector means thinking big and making international connections, and then returning home to share knowledge. We want to be clear that opportunities for long-term funding are a key intended feature of the new Arts Organisations and Groups Fund. Now I'll pass to Abby, who will talk you through funding opportunities for arts organisations and groups in 2025. Abby, you're muted.
You're muted, Abby.
Sorry about that. Okay, thanks, Leah. You know we're keen to hear as much. We know you're keen to hear as much as we can share. So I'll start with the current opportunities for arts organisations and groups, and then Claire will talk through what we can expect in 2026. Now, there are no changes to the 2025 Arts Organisations and Groups Fund. The first tier is for funding up to $50,000 a year for a period of 1 or 2 years. And the second tier is for funding between $50,000 and $125,000 a year for a period of 1 to 2 years. The 2025 Arts Organisations and Groups Fund supports the delivery of a programme of work. It will open for applications on the 19th of May and closes on the 19th of June. There's strong support for Creative New Zealand's focus on development, growing artistic and business skills, is essential for long-term sustainable change that benefits our communities. The Development Fund for arts organisations and groups will continue to support targeted capability building. It will open on the 7th of April this year. So who can apply for these two funds? New Zealand-based arts organisations and groups, and international arts organisations if the funding directly benefits New Zealand arts and artists. Organisations that are in the Tōtara or Kahikatea investment programs cannot apply for these funds in 2025 if they have accepted an offer to extend their existing fund contracts. If you're not familiar with the Arts Organisations and Groups Fund or the Development Fund for Arts Organisations and Groups, you can find all the information that you need on our website or book a time with one of our advisors. And we really recommend that you do that. You can book a time online, via email, or over the phone. We will publish the budgets for the Arts Organisations and Groups Fund and the Development Fund for Arts Organisations and Groups for this year on our website once they open in May. Back to you, Claire.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you, Abby, very much. So to bring you all up to date on our current thinking and the work Council has endorsed to date, in 2026, we are working towards adding new tiers with an increased upper level of funding to the Arts Organisations and Groups Fund. The fund is intended to continue to offer opportunities for multi-year support. We're currently working out what the number of years of funding will look like and the maximum amounts offered. Now, we know that detail is your most frequently asked question, but we're doing that work now. The Arts Council will make these decisions in August. We know that's a long time to wait, and we want to give you all the information we can to help you prepare for 2026 and plan for 2026. We expect to be able to share details of the new programs publicly in September of this year following that Arts Council hui. Applications for the new 2026 funds are intended to open in early 2026 for activities taking place from 2027. What this means is that organisations and groups will have 3 to 4 months to explore the new funds with our advisors prior to making any applications. Now, in 2026, for the Development Fund for Arts Organisations and Groups, the 2026 Development Fund for Arts Orgs and Groups, there are no changes proposed. Organisations in the Tōtara and Kahikatea programs can apply to both the 2026 Arts Organisations and Groups Fund and the 2026 Development Fund for Arts Organisations and Groups for activities that will begin from the 1st of January 2027. If you're applying this year or you're keen to get ahead for 2026 and understand your own thinking and alignment with your strategy, a really good place to start is to understand how we're currently thinking about and defining organisations and groups. And a lot of people have told me they found it really helpful to think about how we're defining community and impact as well. I'm going to pass to Leah to explain some of our definitions in further detail. Over to you.
Thanks, Claire. So I'll explain our definition of arts orgs and groups. Arts organisations and groups deliver ongoing or regular artistic activity, have a long-term purpose or vision for the arts, continue operating even if people change, and have arts outcomes as their core activity. Examples of arts organisations and groups can include an art gallery, a festival, an orchestra, an established publishing company, among many more. Arts organisations are generally legal entities such as a company, trust, registered charity, or incorporated society. They may or may not have professional staff or a formal strategic plan. An arts group may or may not be a legal entity or have professional staff or a formal strategic plan. Groups can include entities such as collectives, artist-run spaces, or groups that deliver an ongoing program of artistic activity. Marae, iwi, and hapu can apply to arts organisations and groups funds and opportunities if their requested activities meet the purpose of the fund. We've updated our information on our website about what we mean by arts orgs and groups. Some groups may fit the arts groups and collaborators definition. These groups can apply for one of the following: funds for individual artists and practitioners, or funds for arts organisations and groups. They cannot apply to both. We know that for some of you, this might not address your specific situation or may not represent how your organisation works. So we really encourage you to talk to one of our team before applying to the Arts Organisations and Groups Fund so that they can support you to choose the right path. You can find an advisor under the Contact Us page on our website. And back to Claire.
Many thanks, Leah. We've heard the call to be more honest and transparent and open in our communication, and that includes our financial situation. So first, it's probably important to refresh on our overall funding. We receive about 75% of our core funding from the New Zealand Lottery Grants Board, Te Puna Tahua New Zealand Lotteries. Last year, we got confirmation that for the next 4 years, we will receive about $53 million per year. This was the result of Creative New Zealand staff working really proactively with lotteries, and is the first time that we've had multi-year funding confirmed. Historically, we had to work on a year-on-year basis. It's great for our planning to know that $52.789 million will be allocated annually for the next 4 years. This compares with $49.5 million in 23-24. This change provides us with far greater certainty and the ability to plan further out, and to pass the certainty on in some of our own planning. Our own funding from the government has been stable for a really long time and remains at $16.689 million in the 2024-2025 year. Government funding, therefore, as those of you who are clever at maths will figure out, makes up about 25% of our total revenue. This results in our budget having approximately $70 million in total for the 2024-2025 financial year. As previously mentioned, we will undertake to publish the budgets for the Arts Organisations and Groups Fund and the Development Fund for Arts Organisations and Groups for this year on our website when they open on the 19th of May. As has been widely publicised, we are seeing a really significant increase in demand for our funding since COVID, with the arts also affected, along with the rest of the country, with rising costs. But I want to be clear and reassure that there will be no reduction in our total investment in arts organisations and groups. So, as mentioned to many of you individually, and earlier this year, the total combined investment across our current Tōtara and Kahikatea investment programs and our current contestable arts organisations and groups investment will remain continuous into the next year. Now I want to answer some of the questions that we've heard from you and through discussions that we've all been having. Will the current Tōtara and Kahikatea investment organisations all be guaranteed ongoing funding under the changes to the Arts Organisations and Groups Fund? The simple answer is no. Our funding has always been contestable and it's always been time limited. There are no guarantees of funding for any one individual or organisation. Are the Tōtara and Kahikatea programs intended to continue as separate funds? Again, this is a no. Another question. We've applied for funding 5 times and closely follow all requirements from CNZ. What can we do differently to secure funding next time? This is always a really challenging question for us to answer, as we wish we could fund as many great artists and art organisations and art activities as possible. And we really do know how difficult it is to have repeatedly applied for funding and not receive it. Many of us have been in that position on the other side. Working with an advisor ahead of time to understand the fund that you're applying to and its criteria is essential. But what I can say is that in the face of exceptionally significant demand and ongoing demand, the quality of your application is almost never the issue. Now I'd like to pass back to Abby.
Thanks, Claire. Over the past week, we've received questions through our Kōrero Mai email address ahead of today's session. Leah and I are going to run through some of these questions with the answers now. First question we received was about reporting timelines. An organisation explained that their report for last year is due after this year's funding round application, meaning they won't be able to show in their next application the full delivery of their program. They're wanting to know how to address this to ensure it doesn't harm their next application. So we can really understand your query here, and we don't want timeframes to disadvantage your next application. The best thing to do is to have a conversation with one of us, your advisors, and we can put in place a clear plan that addresses your situation. Keep in mind that your application for this year's funding round and your report for the previous funding are two completely different things. While you do need to provide evidence that you deliver quality programming that is well regarded by others, you could use any evidence for the previous 12 months, for instance, whether that is funded or not. Keep in mind you're not required to report on previously funded activities before you apply for further funding. However, if you do get further funding, we'll ask you to provide an interim report for the activity that you have completed up to this point and before we release the next set of funds. Another question some organisations are wanting to understand is if it makes good sense to apply for multi-year funding in 2025, or if it's wiser to apply for a single year of funding ahead of these new funds being announced in September. This is a really good question, and I would say that the best thing is for you to determine the level of funding you're requiring and the best timeframes that will support your work. Again, I'd suggest talking through your needs with an advisor so that you've explored all these options and can apply with confidence. Another question, are cultural and kapahaka groups eligible to apply to this fund? We're wanting to attend an international festival and events to represent Aotearoa. Do we have to be a non-profit or a registered company or an iwi or a community group? The short answer is that yes, you can apply as long as you meet the criteria for this fund. Depending on your structure, you might meet the definition of a group or an organisation. You do not have to be a registered company or a non-profit. Marae, iwi and hapu can apply to arts organisations and groups, funds and opportunities if their requested activities meets the purpose of this fund. Your arts organisations and groups fund application can include your full program of arts activity. One of our Ngātoi Māori practice advisors could assist you with making the strong application for this. I'll pass back to Leah to answer the rest of the questions.
Thanks, Abby. So the final few questions we have are universities considered groups? Could a research group within a university apply for funding to the Orgs and Groups Fund or for the Development Fund opportunities? The answer is we do not support activities and operational costs that are the core business of a tertiary education organisation. An example of a non-core activity that is eligible for funding would be if a university were to run a residency program for writers or artists. While a research group within a university would not be eligible, a university staff member doing an arts activity that sits outside of their university role may be eligible. An art form advisor would be able to help you understand whether or which parts of your project are eligible for funding. And then we have a question around feedback with some concerns that we're not offering feedback anymore and how we intend to help applicants improve and make better applications. So in 2025, we'll continue to be consistent in our approach to offer advice on your application and be consistent in the decisions made, but we still won't be offering written assessor commentary. And the last one we have is, are you considering a multi-phase application process to keep things simpler for applicants and proportionate to their ask? The answer is yes. We are considering a range of options for the Arts Organisations and Groups Fund that balance accessibility, an applicant-focused approach, and a robust decision-making process. Back to Claire.
Many, many thanks. Because there is one question I can see in the Q&A that matches your previous answer, I'll just draw attention to your previous answer and say that yes, we are considering a range of options for the arts organisations and group funds that balance a variety of decision-making processes and an applicant-focused approach. However, all of our funds are fundamentally contestable and time-bound. So yes, this is a contestable opportunity that we're talking about. All other queues will be aid in due course. Right. So before we sign off, I just want to highlight that, as lots of you know, we're currently seeking, and as previously mentioned, we're currently seeking feedback on our long-term strategy to 2040 that's currently in draft, called Tumaira Toi Aotearoa. We've got a proposed vision and 5 proposed long-term goals that will inform our work and approach over the next 15 years. And for those of you who've been asking for clues to our strategic direction, this is it. This is your opportunity. This is a strategy for, for you to get involved in. The work that we're undertaking across all of our arts funding and all of our programs is informed by and encompassed in and strongly consistent with that strategy. Some of you will recognise in it a lot of the same themes and challenges that you've shared with me, my predecessors in this role, and all of us in recent times. I've heard from you that these times bring really specific challenges, as well as opportunities, to collaborate as communities, to advocate, to work together, and to harness the transformative power of arts. And we want to hear your thoughts on how best we can achieve this in this strategy. You can access a copy of the strategy, the accessible video summary, the discussion paper at our website, creativenz.gov.nz, under the strategy section. And to provide feedback, you can complete the online SurveyMonkey about the strategy, or you can email us at strategy@creativenz.gov.nz. Cool. So thanks for joining us today. This is the first of 4 webinars, as mentioned, that we'll be hosting through till September, to make sure that we're sharing all of the information iteratively that we can as soon as it's available. We'll have webinars in May, July, and September. Until then, if you have any other questions that arise, email us at the email address previously mentioned, kōrero and we'll respond. Thanks again to Eunice on the tools, to Bridie and Philippa, to my colleagues, and to all of you for your time today and input. We'll talk again soon. I will close this off again and reconnect us with a karakia. Whakairia ake te kete kōrero, ki ngā pakitara o te whare. He tiki anō no muri ake nei, kia wātia ai, kia wātia ai. Kia tina, homie, hui, taikie. Hang the basket of knowledge upon the walls of the whare, so that it may be collected again hereafter. Clear the space, know and understand. Join together, come together, be united as one. Kia ora.